Good evening and welcome to Parent Talks, How to Raise a Middle School Boy, version 2.0. This is the second presentation in the Principles series. My name is Monica Morris and I am this year's Parent Talks coordinator. Parent Talks is an education program sponsored by the Vancouver College Parents Association. The purpose of Parent Talks is to share current theory and research while providing practical suggestions with respect to parenting our boys. To maximize the benefit of this program, you're encouraged to ask questions, share your experiences, and contribute to the overall discussions. This is an opportunity for us as parents to gather and reflect on the amazing task of parenting our boys as they grow and develop into wonderful young men. While many of you have met this evening's speaker, Mr. Cavalluzzo, I would like to take a moment to highlight why Vancouver College is so fortunate to have him guiding our middle school boys. First is his experience. Prior to joining the Vancouver College community, Mr. Cavalluzzo was the Director of Intermediate Middle School Programs at Collingwood School in West Vancouver. And prior to that, held a variety of leadership positions at Upper Canada College, an independent boys' school in Ontario. Second is his vision of education centered on what he calls the 4 C's: character, community, culture, and curriculum. And lastly, his pride in Vancouver College. Upon joining Vancouver College as the middle school assistant principal, he told us, "My wife, Sophie, and I are thrilled to have the opportunity to join a faith and learning community steeped in excellence and tradition. Being members of Vancouver College means joining a team that we can be proud of, a team that's focused on transforming boys of promise into men of character, one boy at a time." So, Mr. Cavalluzzo, we are very much looking forward to your presentation this evening. The structure of today's Parent Talk will have Mr. Cavalluzzo present his pyramid of parenting, which will include his experience as an administrator, a teacher, and a parent. He has reviewed the questions that some of you submitted prior to this evening, and he will be addressing those after his formal presentation. But I encourage you to ask questions throughout. I'll be monitoring the chat, and any questions that come forward I can relay to Mr. Cavalluzzo upon the conclusion of his formal presentation. And he can either address them this evening or he can follow up with communications with you following. But please don't be shy with your comments and questions in the chat feature that you'll find linked to our YouTube channel. I hope, like me, you're sitting somewhere nice and comfy and you have a full hour of uninterrupted time to just reflect on what it means to be a parent to a middle school boy, and that you thoroughly enjoy this evening with Mr. Cavalluzzo. We're aiming to end at 7 p.m. And without further ado, I will pass you over to Mr. Cavalluzzo.
Thank you so much, Monica. Very thoughtful biography of me. So I just wanted to thank you again for your introduction. I wanted to thank you for planning tonight especially. I also wanted to thank Jason and Willen for being here to help film us on YouTube Live. And I just wanted to thank all of our parents for spending some time with me today to discuss that topic, how to raise a middle school boy. Now, as an English teacher, as well as a social studies teacher and an athletics coach, I think one of the most powerful ways to learn is through stories. So I thought I would begin my presentation today with a story. And the story is included in my life map. A life map is a visual representation of some of the successes and some of the challenges that I've had in my own life. I got this idea from the movie Inside Out. And in the movie Inside Out, the main character speaks of these core memories or core moments which have an indelible mark on your life. Now, last year I presented this map to you in totality and helping me introduce myself to the VC community. And today I will only focus on one specific moment in time. Now, growing up, I definitely was a student that struggled academically in school. And I think my parents were always trying to understand, why does their hardworking son not come home with not just an A on his report card? Why doesn't he come home with straight A's? And it was in grade 7 at the beginning of middle school that I was diagnosed with a learning disability. Now that's a really challenging moment for a middle school boy to understand and to comprehend, because in middle school it's really all about trying to fit into the box. And now all of a sudden I was different from everyone else. Now if I had to boil that experience down to like one moment in time, it would be on Tuesdays and Thursdays when the rest of my mainstream class was able to go to these fun, engaging classes like home ec and shop. I had to take the long walk to portable number 5 to see my resource teacher, and my resource teacher's name was Miss Hazard. It's actually Miss Hazard, so you can imagine how I was stigmatized by my peers and even my friends in leaving that classroom. Now, I will say in grades 7 and 8, I was blessed and very fortunate to have a really remarkable figure come into my life, and his name was Mr. McKernan. Mr. McKernan, I hope you're watching from home in Toronto. And he had 2 immense impacts on my life. The first is I knew at the end of grade 7 that I wanted to become a teacher. That ultimately it was his relationship that inspired me to become a teacher, and I stand here today because of him. And it wasn't about the big, pep talk at the end of school each day. It was really focused on small gestures. Him smiling, him being present, our friendly banter back and forth about his favorite NFL team, the Miami Dolphins, and my favorite NFL team, the Buffalo Bills. And he was able to talk to me even about such a great TV show and Saved by the Bell. I know everyone at home remembers that TV show with Zach Morris, just an outstanding production overall. Now, Dr. Robert Brooks said that possibly the most critical element to success within a school is a student developing a close and nurturing relationship with at least one caring adult. Students need to feel that there is someone whom they know, to whom they can turn, and who will act as an advocate for them. Mr. McKernan was that trusted adult outside of my parents, and he was a truly charismatic figure, and I think those small gestures really did influence my own philosophy of life. Now, the second impact that Mr. McKernan had on my life, I think that most days I probably looked a little bit like this, where I was drowning. I had no executive functioning skills. I didn't know how to organize my writing, didn't know how to take notes, and I didn't know how to study. And I think it was on one of these days where I looked probably pretty similar to this photo, where Mr. McKernan said, JP, I want you to wait back and have a conversation with me. And in that moment in time, I remember that conversation very vividly. And he said, you know what, don't worry about your performance, focus on process. That ultimately it's your character that's going to lead you to success in the future. I want you to be reliable, I want you to work hard and show grit in adverse situations and bounce back and be resilient when you do encounter that adversity in your life. And I remember one phrase specifically that he left with me from that encounter in that one-on-one conversation, and he told me that character is destiny. Always remember that, because that's become a really key influence for me on my own educational philosophy, that character is destiny. Now at the time, those words were pretty hollow. Like, as a middle school boy, what is character? That's an abstract concept. What is destiny? How does character impact my future or my destiny? Over time, my understanding of that phrase began to grow. Now, I was a typical boy growing up. I loved athletics, and I really, really loved sports. And I think that began because I had a passion for collecting athletic cards. Basketball cards, hockey cards, you name it, I collected it. I had acetate sheets. I loved organizing those cards, trading them, and then even reading the back of those cards, the summary. I loved knowing about the person that was the athlete as well as their professional statistics. Now that inspired me to pick up the newspaper. And each day my dad would give me the Toronto Star Sports page, and I would voraciously read through the game summaries and the statistics, and I would even take it to school. And I can actually remember sitting down and illustrating, making my own sports page, and that became a pretty common habit for me when I was at school. I was eventually inspired to begin reading biographies about athletes, and today one of my key passions and interests is reading biographies about historians, I should say historical figures, as well as a variety of leaders. I was about halfway through high school at St. Michael's College School in Toronto when I came across this book. And the book is called The Pyramid of Success. And it was really written about the philosophy of John Wooden. John Wooden is a 10-time national champion basketball coach for the UCLA Bruins. He coached such greats as Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton. And the Pyramid of Success outlines his philosophy, and it's framed around an actual pyramid. And if his team lived by this philosophy, then they, in essence, would eventually be successful on the court. And if his individual players lived by this philosophy, they, in essence, would be successful in life. And it looks like this. And that was the first moment where I really began to understand what character is destiny meant. For me, it finally gave me a roadmap to understanding my character and how important process is in eventually getting to perform or excel. Now, anytime I encountered a problem, a challenge, anytime I needed to answer a question, I literally always came back to the Pyramid of Success because it was something that I believed in, and it became my roadmap. Now, in the last 2 years, I've had a variety of questions that have percolated in my mind, and they have to do with parenting. My wife gave birth to a baby boy, Hugo, 2 years ago, and he is growing up so quickly. And the questions that come to my mind are, what type of environment do I provide my son? What are the key messages that I need to impart to Hugo? And then ultimately, I always come back to this question, which is like, how do I even parent, right? How do I raise my middle school boy? Because I don't think any of us really have a roadmap. Now, I'm a pretty linear thinker, and because I'm a linear thinker, I began literally sketching out how I was going to parent. And as I began reflecting over months and months on end, I eventually came back to John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. And what I've developed is the Pyramid of Parenting Success. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the pyramid and more so about the importance of teaching our sons the personal and social core competencies of the new BC curriculum. So this is the pyramid of parenting. Everything begins with the environment that we provide to our son. It needs to be an environment that is united. It needs to be an environment of structure and boundaries, an environment of love and affection, and finally, an environment of permission. Permission to feel and permission to fail. Now, once we provide that type of environment for our son, we as parents have to play an active role in teaching our sons. We are the primary educators in their lives, so it's not good enough to let your son out of the car door every day at Vancouver College and expect the teachers to begin teaching your son. It really does begin with us. And one of those questions is, what do I teach my son? And I think what we need to be teaching our sons are those personal and social core competencies of the new BC curriculum. So personal awareness and responsibility, positive personal and cultural identity, and social awareness and responsibility. Now, as we teach and cultivate those competencies and skills in our son, we have to really navigate our sons through a pathway or a period of what I call discovery, where they have to answer two key questions. The first question is who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my passions? What's my ability, ultimately? And I think when we're able to self-actualize and reflect on who we are, we're able to answer that second question, which is, how do I serve others? Because it's not just pursuing excellence in all endeavors individually. It's about all of us. And it's about giving our strengths and giving our passions to others to make this a better place. Now, once we're able to provide that type of environment, and we're teaching and cultivating those competencies, and we're navigating our sons through that period of discovery, our sons can reach their human potential. So that is the pyramid of parenting. So the big idea for today's talk is that parents are the primary educators in the lives of their sons, and that the core competencies are a recipe for success as a parent. Notice how I said a recipe, not the recipe. I am not the perfect parent. And I'm very positive that my beliefs and perspective on parenting will evolve over time, but I do believe that the core competencies are a recipe for your success as a parent. One of the first items that they teach you in Teachers College or even in your Masters of Teaching program has to do with the principles of instruction. Now, last year my talk was really focused on the environment that we all should be aiming to provide for our son. So I'm going to give a period of time right now where I'm going to review. We always learn in Teachers College that much of the material you teach will be lost if you don't review those previously learned concepts in class. So I'm hoping to do that with you right now. Everything begins with having a household that is united, from mother to father, from guardian to guardian, from parent to parent. And I think that begins with having open lines of communication. Open lines of communication with how we want to raise our son. What are the guidelines, the structures, the boundaries that we want to put into place for our son? And those conversations don't just happen weekly or monthly. Those are daily conversations. Now, I'm experiencing a really interesting time in my life where my 2-year-old Hugo is beginning to seek out the weak link in our household. He is going to my wife, myself, and our nanny looking for the response that he wants to hear. And usually it has to do with some type of sugary snack, which isn't great, especially as we approach closer to Halloween here. But we need to be united in our messaging because that creates a consistent environment for our son. Now, it's just not unity between parents. It's also unity from your home to our school community. That our parents need to be supportive of our teachers and supportive of our approach, supportive of our academic programs, our student life programs, and at some point your son may make a mistake, and that's good. And you need to, in those times, understand that great learning comes from failure. And I would hope that you would support our possible process of discipline here, knowing that it is one that is more restorative in nature. So, I think I just wanted to commend all of you for being here today because you're able to take the messaging that I'm giving you and you're able to create that united environment by reiterating it in your home. So thank you so much for being here. Now, our environment also needs to be one of structure and boundaries. And I always say this to our teachers at the beginning of every year, that our boys thrive in those types of structured environments. And that begins with us. It begins with the parents really teaching their son the difference between right and wrong explicitly. And beyond that, why is that decision wrong? And that helps your son to build his character. Now from there, it really is all about modeling. Our boys really are great imitators. I walk down the hallway and I can literally feel over my shoulder boys imitating my walk or what they would call my swag down the hallway. But we need to give them something great to imitate. And what I mean by that is if you have high expectations in your home and you have a variety of guidelines, well, we need to live up to those guidelines because we need to act with the behavior that we want to see in our son. So if we have technology guidelines, we definitely don't want to be texting a friend at the table or even sending off that last work email. We need to be present in that moment in time. Now from there, last year I spoke a little bit about the importance of our son sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night, especially in middle school, knowing your son's friends, having technology limits and guidelines in your house and monitoring your son's social media account. And I know that those boundaries or structures will be helpful to you in having your son reach his potential. Now from there, we really want to create an environment of affection and ultimately love. I really do enjoy reading this quote from Jane Goodall. She's a primatologist, also a mother of one, and she said that one thing I had learned from watching chimpanzees with their infants is that having a child should be fun. And I think at times we often get caught up in everything around us. We get caught up in the parents even that surround us. We think about the mom of the varsity football quarterback or the dad of that President's Honor Award winner. And we're always thinking of either the failures of the past or what is to come. And what's so important is that we're living in that moment in time with our boy at home. And I think that really begins with giving up your time. I'd encourage you to do this last year, and I hope that you would continue on with this practice, is booking something called special time in your family calendar each week, where you spend 60 to 90 minutes one-on-one with your son. And your son has the ability to pick and choose what he wants to do during that time. That could be playing a video game. It could be throwing the football outside. It could be going to a movie or playing a board game. But it's really in those moments in time where your son feels your affection and your love, because that connection is really critical, obviously, to parenting. Now, finally, our environment needs to be one where our boys have permission to feel. You know, the emotions are critical to our day-to-day lives. They help us to make decisions and experience the world that surrounds us. And we need to have households where our boys can share more and feel more versus less. We do our best to teach social emotional learning at VC. One of our goals is teaching social emotional learning in the middle school. Use a brain driver's guide to education, and that could be something that you might want to research to reiterate in your own home. Now, beyond that, our boys need to have permission to fail. And where does that begin? That begins with them making choices. We shouldn't make every choice for our boys. They have to own their behavior. And even if they make the decision that you know is going to fail, allow it to be a non-catastrophic failure, because it's in those moments in time where there is great learning, where they learn how to experience loss, experience failure, and beyond that, you know, really reverberate and bounce back from an adverse situation. So, the pyramid really begins with those environmental building blocks, and that is the foundation for the environment that we need to be able to provide to our son. So the focus of today's talk is really on how you teach and what you teach. And what you teach your son has to do with the personal and social core competencies. And very shortly, I will be outlining each of them and speaking about one specific facet that you can help to cultivate in your home.
Hello, how was your day?
Fine.
How was practice?
Fine.
And how are all your classes?
Good.
Do you have any homework?
I guess.
Do you or not?
I don't know.
Anything fun happened today, or?
I guess.
Anything?
I don't know. How many questions are you gonna ask me?
Young man, hey, watch it.
Can we go to McDonald's?
No, we have food at home.
Oh, the food at home sucks.
No, it doesn't. Okay.
Why can't we ever go?
We don't need to spend that money.
Ugh.
Did you talk to any girls today?
I don't know.
What about that girl? Katie?
Stop.
Did you?
Mom, stop.
Did you finish your homework?
I don't know.
Did you finish your homework?
I did most of it.
You'll go finish your homework right now. Go.
You'll finish your homework.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
Do you want me to tell your father what you just said to
No.
me?
Okay, I'm sorry. I take it back. Sorry.
What do you want for dinner?
Mm.
Okay, I'll make spaghetti.
I don't want spaghetti.
Well, then what do you want?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know. I don't care.
I'm making spaghetti then.
No, I don't want that.
Dinner's ready.
Actor doing a great job of portraying a middle school student who might not be someone that's totally personally aware or socially responsible. I don't know if any of you are experiencing that in your own home. I will say, as a side note, I think our boys do a really great job of showing their best each and every day when they come to school. But I also do know that when Hugo is 13, 14, or 15, I might see some of those behaviors. So the first core competency that I'm going to discuss tonight is personal awareness and responsibility. And each of the core competency involves different facets that our teachers are expected to teach and cultivate in their students. And those are common facets from all the way from kindergarten through to grade 12. Now, within personal awareness and responsibility, that specific core competency, there is self-advocating, self-regulating, and finally well-being. I simply don't have enough time to speak of each facet, so I'm only going to really dive into one facet per core competency. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about well-being. And the rationale for me speaking about well-being today really has to do with the time period in which we are living. We're living in the midst of a pandemic where our boys didn't go to school in all of term 3 last year, where some are experiencing angst and stress and anxiety from COVID-19, possibly impacting our family or even their own future. I know that we have 138 new boys in the middle school, so there could also be some stress and anxiety that's percolating in your son at home, and it's really important that we're able to provide our boys with knowledge and help to develop the well-being skill. So as an educator, you're always looking at these schools on the hill, these model institutions that have great academic programs or student life programs, and you're always trying to pick and choose from some of those schools in different ways that you can implement maybe some of their strategic plan or their academic programs into your own. And a specific school that does such a great job of this concept of well-being is called Crescent School in Toronto. It's in Midtown Toronto. It's an all-boys school. And their strategic plan, number one priority, is to ensure the well-being of each of their boys. And it's focused on something that they call STEM 1.0. STEM 1.0 is an acronym for sleeping better, thinking better, eating better, and moving better. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, aren't those environmental factors or building blocks or boundaries that I need to put into place for my son? And I'm here to tell you that yes, an element of it is definitely environmental, but these are actually pieces of knowledge, and they're also competencies and skills that our boys need to be able to practice. Okay? So I'm going to dive into each of these different components of the acronym STEM, and everything begins with sleeping better. Our boys should be sleeping about 8 to 10 hours a night in middle school. And I'm not going to outline the key benefits of sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night, because I think we all understand those components right now. But I will say that I don't know if all of our boys, and I would say that probably about 50% of our boys really struggle with reaching that limit of 8 to 10 hours a night. And the reason I believe that is because I see them walk in each morning, and I'm able to see them in the hallway, and I can see their faces. And beyond that, I do get emails. I get emails from some of our students at 1, 2, 3. I had a boy email me at 4 o'clock in the morning last year. And that is something that worries me because sleeping better is fundamental to us being well. Now, I think there's a component of technology at home. And when our boys have cell phones and their iPad in their room or even a laptop, watching that blue light just before we go to sleep, or at least attempting to go to sleep, can really slow the release of melatonin, which is a hormone that helps us to sleep. Now, if I'm one of our students and I'm looking at social media prior to going to sleep, that might actually increase my cortisol levels. And those are hormones that could stem from a stress response based on something that I'm seeing online, which would, in effect, once again, delay me from getting to sleep. So I really do encourage you to really pull those devices out of their room and put them in a common space in your home.
We know that individuals reporting less than 7 hours of sleep a night are almost 3 times more likely to become infected by the rhinovirus, otherwise known as the common cold. We also know that women sleeping 5 hours or less a night are almost 70% more likely to develop pneumonia. But we've also discovered that sleep can play a role in your successful immunization. So in one study, they took a group of individuals and they limited them to 4 hours of sleep a night for 6 nights. And in the other group, they gave them a full night of sleep each and every one of those nights. And then during that time period, they gave them a flu shot. And they measured the response to that flu shot. What they discovered is that in those individuals who were sleeping just 4 hours a night, they went on to produce less than 50% of the normal antibody response. So, in other words, if you're not getting sufficient sleep in the week or the days before you get your flu shot, it may render that vaccination far less effective as a consequence. What this tells us, and now what we're starting to learn, is that it's during sleep at night, including deep non-REM sleep, when we actually restock the weaponry within our immune arsenal. We actually stimulate the production of numerous different immune factors. And furthermore, the body actually increases its sensitivity to those immune factors. So you wake up the next day as a more robust immune individual. So when it comes to your immune system, you should perhaps think of sleep as one of the best health insurance policies that you could ever wish for.
Now, the reason I included that video from Matt Walker was the time period in which we're living. And I think the benefit of getting that 8 to 10 hours a night, or even an extended period of time as adults ourselves, really comes down to the importance of boosting our immune system and even fighting illness during the time of a pandemic. I'm going to move on to thinking better. Now, thinking better. I would really encourage that you and your son practice 10 to 15 minutes of prayer or meditation per day, and that could look like using the Headspace app online. Now, I know I've dedicated myself each and every morning upon entering my office to focusing on prayer. And for 15 minutes, I do read a Bible verse and I just engage in prayer. And really it helps with my spiritual development. But with more than that, I can tell you how much calmer my emotions are each and every morning. So before I open my laptop, I engage in prayer. And then I will say that when I do open my email box, there are some pretty precarious emails from parents and from other stakeholders in our community that rises my stress level. But in that moment in time, I do have calmer emotions. Now, if our boys are practicing mindfulness and even prayer, there are extreme benefits. And better sleep, calmer emotions, increased ability to focus, increased memory, greater self-awareness, increased resiliency. What an incredible list. Our teachers try to begin each of their classes with prayer. And they've communicated to me that there are two great benefits. One is spiritual and practicing prayer, but the other is decreasing anxiety and stress in their classroom. I think beyond that, we work in an all-boys school where energy can become so high that 5 minutes of prayer can really ease the classroom environment as well. Eating better. How do we eat better and what do we need to be teaching our son? We grew up, I believe, with the food pyramid, and that there were certain amounts of food in that pyramid that we needed to eat. Today is really focused on the healthy eating plate, and I wanted to give you a few important pieces of knowledge for your son that he should really be practicing at home. The first is eating well-balanced meals, mostly plant-based, and that can have the greatest impact on boosting your immune system. So that's a really critical one. Limiting the amount of processed foods that we intake. Our boys love those sugary drinks, those sport drinks, pop, soda. So limiting all of those sugary drinks because as we limit them, that will actually decrease our obesity rates, our diabetes, heart disease, depression. It can also impact having acne. Now the last area is drinking more water. Drinking 4 liters or 15 cups of water can have a great benefit on your physical performance or even on your brain function. It helps with muscles and joints, and it can improve your cardiovascular health as well. So at this point, I'm going to transition into the last letter of that acronym, which is moving better.
Those of us who remember John Kennedy, he affected our lives dramatically. He had a vigor, he had a youth, he had an energy. He took La Sierra High School and made that the poster child of his program to make America a healthy place, because he understood that if America was healthy, physically healthy, it would be mentally, spiritually, emotionally, patriotically healthy.
I welcome this opportunity to speak to the people of America about a subject which I believe to be most important, and that is the subject of physical fitness. And I speak not only as President of the United States, but also as a parent of 2 children who I hope will grow up with those qualities of vigor and energy which we identify with the best of America. This should be a matter of concern to us all. A country is as strong really as its citizens. And I think that mental and physical health, mental and physical vigor go hand in hand.
So there's probably some parents right now freaking out, thinking that is a PE class at Vancouver College. I can promise you that it's not. It's La Sierra High PE in 1962. But I really love this statement by John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He said, "A country is as strong as its citizens. Mental and physical health go hand in hand. It's remarkable that he even said that so long ago in 1962, but I believe that statement really resonates with me, and it also connects to the philosophy of our school. We are invested in creating well-rounded individuals who strive for excellence in all endeavors, and that includes their physical health. Now, in terms of advice that I want to give you about moving better or encouraging your son around being active for 60 minutes a day, I would really encourage you to have a message that playing multiple sports is going to be important to his development physically, and then that could, in essence, improve his athletic skill over a period of time. And also encourage your son to get outside and really enjoy the amenities of our great city and our province, because when you go for a hike, there is a great physical benefit, but there's also a great thinking benefit as well. There's a mindfulness there as well. So although STEM 1.0 can be seen as the environment you provide for your son, STEM are pieces of knowledge and also skills that they need to utilize to create well-being in their own lives, and thus allows them to become more personally aware and responsible. Now, in an upcoming newsletter, I'm going to send you Dr. Greg Wells' tips for improving health and performance. Dr. Greg Wells was one of the key writers of Crescent School's strategic plan, along with Headmaster Michael Fellon, who gave me permission today to talk to you a little bit about their approach at school. And I would really recommend that you read through the document and even practice these tips alongside your son. All right. Now, fast forward into the second personal and social core competency, which is positive personal and cultural identity. It involves 3 different facets: understanding relationships and cultural contexts, recognizing personal values and choices, and identifying personal strengths and abilities. Now, I'm going to highlight the third facet, which is identifying personal strengths and abilities. And my rationale for diving a little bit deeper on that facet has to do with the time period our boys are living in, which is middle school, where you're beginning to ask yourself those identity questions like, ultimately, who am I? So, to be able to identify personal strengths and abilities, our boys really need to practice reflective thinking. Reflective thinking is a sub-competency in the new BC curriculum. And reflection is thinking about your thinking. It's assessing one's performance. And that is really, metacognition is really a key to learning. So the first area that I would encourage you to help teach with your son is practicing reflective thinking. Now, how do you do that? I would want you, and I would encourage you to use the Roy Group feedback model with your son. Now, Roy Group is a company, an organization that works with, Fortune 500 companies and schools, organizations across the globe. And really what they do is they work with the leaders of those organizations, and they help them to find ways to provide feedback to their employers, or employees, I should say. And one of the most powerful ways that you can give feedback to an employee is by allowing them to do it for you, which is reflective thinking. It involves 3 different questions. So, what do you think worked well? What was tricky? And what needs to change? Now, I wouldn't want to ask my son those questions in an emotional time. Coming out of a basketball game, I missed that game-winning shot. I probably don't want to hop on him right there, but I would want that to be a part of your habit. Finding a non-emotional time where you can ask those questions. Maybe it's a day after he gets a test result that doesn't sit well with him. It could be his screechy Christmas concert performance or a great concert performance overall. But in those times, have him practice answering those questions. Now, when our boys are able to answer those questions, they begin to identify their personal strengths and abilities through reflection. Now, the second area is setting goals. Our boys need a vision. Just like every leader in an organization needs to provide a vision, our boys need a vision. How do I get there? What's the road to getting to point B? So I would encourage you to talk to them a little bit about their goals. Each of our middle school boys set 5 goals this year at the beginning of the year during our middle school orientation. One around their identity as a student, as an artist, an athlete, as a Christian, and finally one personal and social goal that they had as well. At the end of each term, we have our boys reflect on where they are with achieving their goals, and they put new tangible strategies into place to help them, reach out for that vision and eventually achieve that goal. Now, when our boys set goals and reflect on those goals, they are beginning to identify their personal strengths and abilities. So I would really encourage you to check in at the end of each term with where they are with their goals. A great time to do that is when report cards come home. Once again, probably not as soon as they come home, but maybe give like 2-3 days before you hop in with the Roy Group feedback or even with where they are in their goals. Now, the last area has to do with their passions. It really is critical for us to converse and connect them to their passions. We need to be present from a young age to understand what gifts our boys have. When I think of Hugo, I think of 3 gifts right now, my son, that I can identify. Number 1, he's an amazing connector. He connects really well with adults. I hope he's not going to be a class clown. Number 2, I will say that he's got great coordination, outstanding coordination skills for a boy his age. And number 3, he loves to read, like voracious reader. He can already read at 2 years old. No, I'm joking, he can't, but he really does enjoy story. And when I think about honing his passions, I think about maybe getting him involved in sport ball. I think of getting him involved in story time at the library. And when you put those environments into place for him, eventually I think you'll help him navigate towards that passion, because all of our boys are born with outstanding gifts. Now, beyond that, how does our guy identify his passion at home? Well, he needs to verbalize it. And sometimes our passions are subconsciously floating around our mind. When you're able to vocalize the things that you like and the things that might be your strength or your passion, it solidifies that concept for you. So I would also encourage you to talk to your son and support him on the things that he really likes and the things that he's passionate about, and have those discussions with him too, because that can help him to identify his personal strengths and abilities. All right. So at this point, I really do think that practicing reflective thinking, setting goals, and also nurturing those passions will help your son to have that positive personal and cultural identity. So the last personal and social core competency that I'll discuss right now is social awareness and responsibility. It involves 3 facets: building relationships, resolving problems, valuing diversity, and contributing to community and caring for the environment. Now, the facet that I'll focus on is resolving problems. The rationale for honing in on resolving problems is because middle school is a time of transformation, but it's also a time of vulnerability. And where does that vulnerability stem from? I think it really stems from conflict. So it is important as parents to teach our sons conflict management skills that can help us to resolve problems. I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about conflict. Conflict is a good thing. And what I mean by that is it's natural, it's going to happen, but it makes us into a stronger person. And there is conflict in middle school. And like I said, it's naturally going to happen. But if we reflect on our own relationships, our relationships with our spouse or our relationships with our friends, it's those conflicts that have made our bonds much stronger. So we don't always have to see conflict as a negative, because a positive can absolutely come out of it. Now, sometimes conflict involves peer pressure, and there is peer pressure that happens in not just our middle school, it happens in any school. So I wanted to speak a little bit about peer pressure. Our boys really do actively seek to avoid being humiliated or embarrassed. If you think back to my story that I started off with today, I was actively trying to avoid leaving that classroom each day to go to portable number 5 because I stood out. I had this intense fear of feeling foolish, and I had this huge sense of shame in leaving the classroom to go to the furthest portable away from the school. And I cannot believe my school put the remedial teacher in that specific environment and place in the school. One boy shared with me last year, one of our students, "I cannot be the same person at school as I am at home." And that's a boy who has maybe a little bit of shame about who he is as a person as he asks that key question, who am I? He's someone that's avoiding being who he's not, and he's being pressured to show an identity of someone who he isn't. And that's something that we're always messaging and working against at VC and at any other school. Now in middle school, you at times see schoolyard culture. It begins to percolate that it's smart to be cool culture versus it's cool to be smart. And I usually see that with our new boys because they're in a new school and they're really trying to make friends. And in trying to make friends, you might emphasize your social life versus your academic growth. And you know, as our boys get older and they enter the senior school, it's almost like a pendulum or a scale where that begins to flip. But it is a vulnerable time period because our boys might be emphasizing their social lives over their academic growth. Now, your parental influence will also diminish over time. And with that will increase the influence from the peers. I said this last year that it's so fundamentally key to know who your son's friends are because he really is an average sum of his friends. And I know that the parents at home can play a role in keeping your son from unhealthy conflict or even situations that involve peer pressure, maybe after school or on the weekend. So please know who your son's friends are. I also wanted to say how important it is to provide them with strategies to resolve problems and to manage conflicts. And I wanted to use a specific example that I see at VC pretty frequently. Low-level conflict, boy A, boy B. They're playing basketball, one-on-one, one wins, one loses, and there's some verbal sparring that happens between the two. So in those moments in time, the first place that we need to really teach our sons is that they need to manage their emotions. And that's really easier said than done. We use the Brain Driver's Guide to Social Emotional Learning at VC, so we're teaching our boys how to reflect, label their emotions, and then regulate their emotions. And there's different language that we use about, you know, pretending that we're a car and a speedometer. Are you too revved up? Are you downshifting your emotion? So I would really encourage you to once again research that specific curriculum and use some of the same language that we're using with our boys at school. Our boys need to be able to define the problem. You know, in those moments, is it just bravado that's getting in between us, or are there other problems and conflicts that are beginning to surface? From there, communicating clearly and respectfully. You know what, Johnny, great game, but let's move on. And those communications can help to manage a conflict and move forward. But if that conflict continues, I think we need to really empower our boys to come up with solutions to overcome that conflict, for them to be able to own their behavior. And that might look like, you know, sitting down one-on-one with that boy and talking about what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, because we need to give them permission to feel. Now, there are times when conflict might be of a larger magnitude, and that might involve bullying. And bullying is something that we take incredibly seriously at the school, and it does have a pretty high threshold. Now, if your son was in that scenario, the first place that I'd really want to teach him is about, you know, positive body language. The bully is always looking for someone with weak body language. So when I'm walking down the hallway, my eyes are up, my head is up, my shoulders are back, my chest is out. So positive body language. From there, really developing the ability to be assertive. And I wish in many stages of my professional life, in some of these types of conflict, that a boy would have just said, stop. It's inappropriate. Cut it out. Because when you draw that line in the sand, it becomes very clear-cut for the individuals that are involved in that conflict. So being assertive, really, really, really key with a higher level conflict. And from there, as parents, feel free to role play these scenarios at home, because it's going to help to front load that conflict in the future. You know, so Johnny's going to be walking by you in the hallway and he says this to you. How do you react? What do you do? So role playing that so that they can experience it before they actually experience it live in person will only benefit them and their ability to manage that conflict. Now, teaching your son strategies to resolve problems contributes to your son becoming more socially aware and responsible. So at this point, I am going to answer a few questions We've had over the last week some questions that have come in via Google Form, and I'm going to do my best to respond to those questions. And I'm going to have Monica ask those questions, and we'll probably answer somewhere around 3 questions.
I apologize, I have those questions. I am not prepared to present those questions to you.
Okay, okay.
Here, if you don't mind.
Okay. So we're not going with my handcrafted questions?
Can you please go to handcrafted?
Are you?
I think you have them.
I do have them. So I'll ask the question, and I'll do my best to respond. So no problem. And these are legitimate questions that did come in from parents. So question number 1, do you have some recommendations for parents to help their sons find healthy balance between pursuing excellence in the spirit of healthy competition and at the same time developing a Catholic brotherhood in the spirit of cooperation and friendship? Now, I have to tell you, when I received that question, whoever the parent is out there, outstanding job with your question. I could even think about giving you a teaching job at VC, because you really did ask a wonderful question. It's beautifully phrased. I think the first area that I would begin is talking a little bit about our school's mission with your son. We had Christian Covington, who is a Cincinnati Bengal, during training camp, the NFL team, and he was a part of our middle school opening assembly. He's a VC grad, and he decided during his NFL training camp to Skype into our assembly and give the boys some advice. And something that he said really resonated with me. He said that the greatest commandment Jesus ever taught us was love thy neighbor as thyself. And I think that's ultimately who we are at Vancouver College, and that's a message we'd want to give our son, that it's not just about pursuing excellence as an individual, but more than that, it's about standing with those in our society that are on the margins. It's about protecting others and serving others. Now from there, I always want to give a character message to our boys. My character message would be that there is no such thing as a self-made man, that we really do achieve our goals shoulder to shoulder with others or even on the backs of others, and that it's not just our own personal competitiveness or our own personal greatness or excellence that's achieving these goals. Now from there, I really would highlight the social awareness and responsibility core competency that I just spoke about. 2 of the facets, one is building relationships, the other is caring for community, and those are really key facets that we need to develop in our sons so that they can meet the demands of university, college, or even the working world. Okay, so that was question number 1. Question number 2 that came in was how to explain to your son that it is time to switch the gear and become more motivated to do well academically in school. Another great question, really focused on the motivation of our boys. I think number 1, I really want to maintain the relationship with your child. Be present, genuinely be interested in their abilities and their strengths, even if those don't jive with your personality. And don't allow your relationship to sour. Dr. Shimi Kang presented this in a professional development session. You don't want to be the tiger parent, authoritative. You don't want to be the jellyfish parent, which is just run over by their children, but you really want to be the dolphin. And you want to be working shoulder to shoulder with your son. So focus on creating that affection and love in the environment, and you don't always need to kind of come down on your son for their lack of work ethic or motivation. Now, I would also try to help them see the big picture. And what I mean by that is explain to your son that you're actually going to take a back seat to their academic work day to day. I'm going to make you pick up the stress ball. Tell them that you're always there to support them if they ever need your help, but you're going to take a back seat. And there's probably some parents that are squirming right now hearing that message. And yes, there is going to be short-term pain, but it's going to pay dividends down the road. There's really going to be long-term gain. When boys have to really pick up the stress ball and begin to care about being more personally responsible, it's in those moments in time where they become more motivated. Now from there, build on the personal responsibility, competency. I would give them chores to do at home. Give them jobs to do at home, because the completion of those activities could help to build their confidence. I think more than that, talk about the importance of engaging with the community. I know I became more motivated as a student when I started playing football at St. Michael's College School, and I joined the track team. That engagement and that connection made me more invested and made me more motivated to play an integral role in the community as a student. Okay, the third question that I got that we received, I should say, from parents is, my son is beginning to question our beliefs or belief as Catholics. Help. And that's a question that I do receive throughout the year. So the first place I would begin is with your son's development. That he's in a stage now, brain development-wise, where he's learning how to critically think. And he's learning how to reflect upon other people's beliefs and perspectives. And at some point, he is going to question your authority. And this seems to be one of those moments in time. And I'm here to tell you that this is natural, and it really is natural for all of our boys. Now, my second message in response to that question is that I always say this at our retreats with our middle school guys, that faith is a journey, and we all have our ups and downs when it comes to our faith and what we believe. And that's, once again, that's something that's natural, but we have to come back to that God's calling is always constant. Even in the midst of chaos, God's voice can be heard. So although we may question our faith or our beliefs, God will always be with us, and we will need to discern His voice even in those moments. So just really trying to keep him engaged. Now the last area has to do with engagement, again, very similar to motivation. Have him see the great that our church does on a daily basis. Being involved with Bumpkin Bakery, being involved with our Faith in Action team, our campus ministry, our junior Edmundians, our senior Edmundians. There's such great work that our community is able to participate in that involves standing with those that are in the margins of our society. And I think it's in those human moments when you begin to understand the beauty of the church and in Jesus Christ, ultimately. So those were the three questions we had received through the week.
I have one more question that's come up.
We do have one more question, so we're going to try to answer that question.
Okay, and
here
so
we go.
essentially you presented a really nice concept for us to think about, that we need to give our boys something great to imitate, right? And so the question has flown from there. Essentially, this parent is inquiring about whether or not Vancouver College has any sort of structure in place whereby senior school is offering any mentorship to middle school. So is there any sort of formal structure in place for that?
Very, very wonderful question. I will say that this was something that we deeply considered over the last year. And in my parent talk last year, there was actually a parent that asked a similar question about mentorship with older students. And we do believe that, character as well as academic concepts can be taught from peer to peer. Where we've really come up short this year is with health and safety. And with cohort sizes and trying to protect our boys against COVID-19, it's really limited our ability to have those mentorships from senior school to middle school. And at the end of last year, we were planning a variety of mentorship programs, and those have kind of gone by the wayside, sadly, and we're still trying to find ways that we can get our senior school students involved with our middle school guys. I will say that we do have a peer mentoring program. Our peer mentors in middle school, they're senior school students. They don't actually come into the academic classes. They're in our neighborhoods which surround the class. And we have a variety of health and safety protocols put into place so that academic mentorship can happen. We also have peer tutors run by Ms. Silva in the Learning Center, where boys can be tutored before school or after school on academic concepts. But once again, we're really trying to do our best with the health and safety situation that we have in the province, and it's definitely, mentoring is critical for our middle school boys, and it's something that we're going to continue to try to grow as we move forward.
Well, I'm looking that we're nearing 7 o'clock. That is
Perfect.
that is the one question that we received this evening. Although I am encouraging people to stay in touch with Mr. Cavalluzzo for any other questions that percolate after hearing his presentation this evening. On behalf of the Vancouver Vancouver College Parents Association, I want to say a really big thank you to you, Mr. Cavalluzzo. I know that you've spent a lot of time preparing for this evening and really ruminating with your thoughts around what can you best share with us, for those of us who are raising middle school boys at this particular time, sharing your experience, as I said, as an administrator, a teacher, but also as a parent, and hearing really nice anecdotes about you and Hugo is really exciting for us to hear as parents as well. I'm really taking away that concept of being someone who's great for our sons to imitate. That's really resonated for me today. And as well as that notion of your STEM 1.0, I believe is what it is. And so that's something that's new to me, and I'm really curious to learn more about it. So I'm really grateful that your slide actually has a reference to where we can go and research it more.
Sure.
So parents are aware this lives on BC YouTube channel. So at any time you can go back and revisit it. The slides are all there. You'll have a chance to hear Mr. Cavalluzzo again. You can sort of add in when you want to and join it as much as you wish to. I have posted an evaluation form, and it's really so that we get feedback around this program for Parent Talks. And so I really encourage you to complete that evaluation form. It's the very first link that you'll see. I'm actually logged in as my son, Owen Morris, for this Parent Talk, but you'll see it says click here for the evaluation form. So please do take a moment it'll probably take you about 2 minutes. Just give us your feedback so that we can best prepare for future Parent Talks that are coming up. If you don't get a chance to do it this evening, look for it, please, in the VCPA newsletter that comes out on Thursdays. The link will be there as well, but we certainly do appreciate your feedback. Our very next Parent Talks is with actually Dr. Simi Kang, and she will be joining us on November the 5th. So, again, a really big thank you to you, Mr. Cavalluzzo. A big thank you to everyone who's joined us and is participating with us and making sure that these conversations continue. I look forward to eventually meeting many of you in person, but thank you so much for joining and participating this evening.
Can I just
please,
step in
go ahead.
here?
Yes,
Thank
you
you
can.
so much. I did want to just take a moment to end in prayer with all of you tonight. I was trying to find a way to segue from evaluation forms into prayer, and I couldn't put the two together. So I did want to end in prayer. I know that the hardest job that I have is raising Hugo, and I wanted to pray with all of you that that you can use some of the tools and knowledge and skills that I've hopefully provided with you tonight to help raise your boy. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. If I had two wishes, I know what they would be. I'd wish for roots to cling to and wings to set me free. Roots of inner values like rings within a tree, and wings of independence to seek my destiny. Roots to hold forever, to keep me safe and strong, to let me know you love me when I've done something wrong. To show me by example and helps me learn to choose, to take those actions every day, to win instead of lose. Just be there when I need you, to tell me it's all right, to face my fear of falling when I test my wings in flight. Don't make my life too easy. It's better if I try and fail and get back up myself so I can learn to fly. If I had two wishes and two were all I had, and they could just be granted by my mom and dad, I wouldn't ask for money or any store-bought things. The greatest gifts I'd ask for are simply roots and wings. Blessed Edmund Rice, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now that was a poem by Dennis Waitley. Now when you provide your son with an environment of unity, structure, affection, and permission, in the words of Dennis Waitley, you provide them with inner values. When you're able to teach and cultivate the personal and social core competencies in the life of your son, you give them wings to become independent. It is my hope that the Pyramid of Parenting will give you a roadmap to help raise your middle school boy into an engaged, character-driven young man. I just wanted to once again thank you so much for spending some time with me this evening, as well as Monica, Jason, and Will in here. Semper Fidelis. Thank you.